Welcome to the AI argument. I'm Frank Prendergast, and I'm here with Justin Collery. And Justin, do you think we'd have a show? Do you think there would be a weekly AI argument if it wasn't for the continuing drama that is OpenAI? like,
It's unbelievable. I mean, this is Game of Thrones stuff. How many seasons were in Game of Thrones? I think it was 7 or 8. OpenAI have enough material for about 10-year run at this stage. It's incredible. What do you make of it?
I have no idea what to make of it. I have to admit, I was really surprised. I don't know why I was really surprised, given the amount of people who have been leaving OpenAI. But when the CTO, Mira Murati, felt obviously like out of the blue to us that she was leaving, that does not feel like a good thing for OpenAI in any way, shape, or form. Now, she said in her communications, and Sam Altman has said in her communications, that it's amicable and it's just the right time, and that there's never a good time to leave. And so she felt like it was better to go now while the company was on an upswing. But I mean, so it wasn't, she left, and then apparently, coincidentally, two other people left. Chief Research Officer Bob McGrew and a Research VP Barrett Zoff. So these were all kind of like that. It wasn't a coordinated leave. It wasn't a coordinated exit. But it doesn't look great. And Mira Murati was brilliant, and also in a male-dominated AI world, it was a kind of a breath of fresh air to have the CTO of OpenAI be a woman. So there's just all kinds of reasons why this just does not seem good for OpenAI at all.
Yeah. I mean, I think at this stage on Twitter, we're going to have people, posting tweets saying that I've taken the difficult decision to stay working in OpenAI. So many people are leaving at this point. I saw somebody joke during the week that, because AGI had been achieved internally, that on one of their Twitch or whatever it is, one of their internal communications things, GPT-5 had put a message to say that it had taken the difficult decision to leave OpenAI and it was no longer working there either. And I agree with you, right? You're right about the gender balance thing. That's kind of, it's because all the replacements are all male and whatever. But I do wonder, like in a big company, I mean, it is a big company now, OpenAI, and I'm a nerd, right? I can hardly look somebody straight in the eye, I'm one of these sort of, slightly, what would you say, autistic type people, right? So I'm not good at reading these situations, right? But you're a people person. And I mean, I'm looking at, and the only reasonable, I mean, there's many possible things, but I'm thinking maybe, maybe it's just really hard work. Maybe, they've been pushing really hard for 5 years, and it's a very different place now than it was, 5 years ago. It started as a research organization. Now it's definitely a product company. And maybe the people who got kicks out of it being a research organization where you're doing stuff for the love of the knowledge, and now you're doing stuff not for the love of the knowledge anymore. Like you've got
Mm.
paymasters. Do you think that's maybe what's pushing these people to leave? It's a different beast now than it was before.
I mean, yeah, I think there's a couple of things about that. There's so Sam Altman himself, when he spoke to the company, or circulated a communication to the company about the exits, he himself said how difficult it was to run a company like this and to keep a company like this staffed. But there's also been a lot of rumors circulating about his leadership style and how difficult he can be. So you got to wonder, is that a factor? And then there's just the simple thing of, Sam Altman he is one of those tech leaders. He has made himself a huge personal brand. OpenAI is Sam Altman. He's made, it's like Elon Musk originally with Tesla, say. And I wonder, is there an aspect of especially if it's a difficult environment, and especially if his leadership style is difficult, is there just an element as well of Mira Murati thinking, well, it's just time for me to step out from behind Sam Altman, do my own thing, and be my own person.
How about this, Frank? Right? Maybe what's going on is this, as I now really think about it deeply, right? So the only reason that we hear about these things and we care is because OpenAI is a consequential company. It's one of the most important companies of the 21st century. Now, you could have, VPs of X, Y, and Z leaving Apple, and I don't think that many people would care, right? You could have VPs leaving Meta, and probably less people would care, right? Microsoft, you might make some headlines, but people, especially in California, change jobs a lot, right? So, I mean, you could probably even now this is my nerdy side coming out, you could probably even do a calculation, right? A turnover in a tech company in California is what? Maybe 5 or 10% a year, right? Something like that. People change jobs every 2 or 3 years, right? They employ maybe 800 people now. So 5% of that is divided by 20. What's that? About 40 a year, right? And the people who are going to leave are likely to be the ones that have been there the longest. So you're going to have them, that's going to be biased towards the more senior people. So maybe it's nothing unusual. Maybe it's just standard churn. Maybe this is just what people leave after a couple of years. It's the American way.
Yeah, and the AI, the people who are that knowledgeable about AI, it's a pretty small pool. I mean, I saw another story about Google. If I can find the statistics, Google, basically, it came out that they had done like where did I see that? A $2.7 billion move to rehire someone who had worked for them previously. So this guy, Noam Shazir, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, he left Google after, I think, that they kind of refused to ship one of his products that he'd been working on internally. He left. He gave out very publicly about how they had become so risk averse, and he founded Character AI. And then they did this whatever it was $2.7 billion deal with Character AI to license some of their software. But part of the agreement, apparently, part of this deal was that they wanted him back. So he's now back working on Gemini. So we're talking about a pretty small pool of like the top talent. So yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe it's all just part of people like shifting and doing what they do normally, but it's really prominent because it's in the media spotlight of AI right now. I don't know.
Do you think it could have anything? The other part of me, by the way, that says, you're saying that there are rumors that Sam Altman is difficult to work with. Well, I mean, there weren't rumors about Steve Jobs. He was very bleeding difficult to work with, all of the great. I mean, Michael O'Leary, I wouldn't fancy working for him. I knew a guy once that worked outside his office, and apparently there was roaring and screaming and whatever, every bit as animated as one might imagine. And the reason that these people are great business leaders and they do amazing things is because they're difficult to work with. That goes with part of the territory. So I don't think I'd have that. Maybe more concerning is the news this week that he was going to take it from being a non-profit to being a profit company, and that as part of that, he was going to take 7% of the company, which was going to value that stake at 10 billion. And I saw people like Elon Musk, understandably in this case, saying that this was very concerning because he would have donated money to OpenAI as a charitable organization. And so then to take it from being a charitable organization to a non-charitable organization would seem to be an appropriation of funds. Did you read this and what did you make of it?
Yeah, I did. And I mean, I just felt like, well, that was inevitable. I think it's a shame. And I think, I would love to know how the company would have evolved differently if, say, Ilya had, if Ilya's vision for it had been the one that kind of won out, which I think he was very much the one pushing the kind of like open side of OpenAI. But, at this point, it was just kind of like, well, yeah, it feels inevitable. But, again, is this something that is contributing to people exiting the company? Because like you said earlier, it's not the company it was. Who knows? And actually, on the who knows point, I read another quote from a guy who was talking about all of this stuff that was going on, and he said, people are valuing OpenAI at 150 billion, and he said on Twitter, like, this is absolutely insane, and investors shouldn't be pouring more money in at higher valuations. They should be asking what on earth is going on. And that's the thing, is that, like, yeah, what is going on? We just have no idea what's going on, but it certainly feels like something is going on.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I also read another story then that said that there was an all hands meeting yesterday in OpenAI, and that Sam Altman said it was ridiculous that he was going to take 7%, and that just wasn't going to happen. And of course, my jokingly response to that was, all of the other co-founders have left, so I'm not taking 7%. You missed a zero. I'm taking 70%.
Yeah, and even if he's not taking 7%, I think the bigger change here is that, yeah, they're going, that they're basically ditching the whole nonprofit idea altogether. I mean, they're saying they're not, but that's essentially what they're trying to do, is restructure so that that nonprofit idea becomes some kind of little vague afterthought as opposed to the core structure of them. Yeah. But unfortunately, yeah, I think I don't know that we'll ever get to the bottom of what on earth is going on in the company now. Maybe when they do become a publicly traded company, it will, they will be forced to be a little bit more transparent, and we might get some idea of what's going on then. But I don't know that we'll ever find out what on earth is happening in there right now.
Oh God, I hope there's books, Frank, in the future, and TV series, and HBO miniseries, and then a feature-length movie, and then an extended director's cut movie. And at this stage, there could be 5 or 6 movies. It's brilliant. I love it. I like the drama. Let's move on.
Yeah.
I tell you, there were 2 stories this week that really caught my eye, Frank.
Yeah.
2 stories, actually 3 stories. They're all, in my mind, they're related, and that's why they caught my eye. So this week, the White House. Okay, sorry, I need to go back to my analogy, right, which I was talking about. So I'm very interested in this thing called the singularity, and the singularity is this hypothetical or notional idea, science fiction idea, that in the future, progress, its speed of progress is exponential, and so things change faster than we can possibly perceive. And traditionally, the way is, because people think about that, is you get the machine to start to improve itself. So when AI can start to improve itself, right? And this was, what was his name? Ashley Brooken. What's the guy's name? Oh, tell me.
Leopold Aschenbrenner.
Thank you kindly. So he was talking about this in situational awareness, right? And this is science fiction, right? But and my analogy was that if you're going into a black hole, from your point of view, when you cross the event horizon, it's imperceptible to you, right? You don't really know that you've crossed the event horizon, but somebody looking at the outside in can go, oh, Frank's just crossed the event horizon. He's never coming out of that black hole. Right? And down you go, right? So a couple of things happened this week that made me think about it, right? So the first, and this kind of relates back to your OpenAI question. So the first was that the White House signed an executive order to say that chip plants no longer needed environmental, didn't have to go through the environmental protection sort of rigmarole when they were getting planning permission to be built. So that's a new law, or rather an old law that's been put aside for chip plants. And the second thing that happened this week was that 14 of the largest banks in the world came together to put together a multi-billion-dollar fund, many, many billions, in order to build new power plants, nuclear power plants. And these nuclear power plants are quite obviously going to be built beside the massive chip factories, which didn't need to get any environmental protection stuff done and whatever, right? So, and this is very similar to what was said would happen. And then the third linked piece of information to that then is Google DeepMind open sourced this thing called Alpha Chip, right? So Alpha Chip is an AI model that they use, and it's used for putting together chips. So designing of chips that would then get fabricated, which is the basis on which all of our AI runs. And they've said that it's already been used to design and make chips which are faster, which are more energy efficient, which are better than the previous generation. And they're open sourcing it so others can get the benefit, but also so the community can improve in it and make this better. And that to me is the first lowest level feedback loop of exponential self-improvement. This is AI improving itself. And so what you have is a huge push to build power plants and chip manufacturing facilities. And then the software is improving itself because it's AI that's improving the software, the design of the chips in order to make those chips faster and more efficient. That to me is you're on the event horizon. You are now
Right.
crossing. You're crossing, right? And and it's interesting because you and me won't notice it, right? The chip factory isn't going to be built in Tremor, right? Or isn't going to be built in Cork or anywhere like that, right? The chip factory is going to be somewhere far, far away, and we're not going to know about it for a year or two. We'll
Mm.
notice it when that starts to feed through to the models, and suddenly OpenAI's models are much cheaper, or Anthropic's models are much cheaper, or they're much faster, or they're much more capable. And it'll be like a jet engine as it takes off. You'll feel it. You'll feel that push in the back of your
Mm.
seat as the engine spool up, and away we go. So I thought that for me, the OpenAI stuff is really interesting. It's a great show. Get me the popcorn. But those stories, those were the real things that were going on in the background, the important stories, things that will actually be consequential in a couple of years.
Yeah. And so there's wow, like there's loads in there to unpack. But the bit that jumps out to me is the environmental, oh yeah, look, it's okay. You just don't do the environmental impact, whatever it is. You're grand, build your. And that reminds me of so again, back to OpenAI. Sam Altman wrote this blog post that everyone was talking about, where what did he call it? The intelligence age, and he painted this rosy picture of the future with AI. And I was looking at it, and I was just, people were talking about it, and people were asking, is this hype, or is he giving himself a pat on the back, or or is this possibly the future that we're looking at? And I was reading it, and I was like, what, why did he write this? What is this? And to me, what it was he's basically saying, look, he's making this huge promise. We're going to make your life way better. We're going to, it's just going to be fantastic. You're going to be so much more prosperous, and you're going to be able to do what you want, and you can have anything you want in some vague future that I can't quite specify, but it's coming, I promise. But we just need a load of stuff from you right now, because we need you to build infrastructure, and we need you to put aside laws, and we need you to, and as much as I am fascinated by AI, and as much this will shock you, Justin, as much as
Trust the guy.
as much as I love it, I'm kind of like, guys, we need to be really wary here. We need to be really careful, because Sam Altman is holding out his hand with these beans that he promises can give us a prosperous and more fun and better life. And we don't know. We just don't know. Are they magic beans yet? And here we are, putting aside environmental laws and looking at, I would imagine that there's a huge pressure to use public funds to build all kinds of infrastructure for AI. And I think that I
The
know
only risk
that
there is that they
probably,
back the wrong horse. They should I mean, it's good to change the rules so that they're the same, as in they don't exist for any of the AI companies. And then if they're using public funds, they should be funding all of the AI companies, just in case one of them doesn't work out. Let's say nobody's
yeah.
left to OpenAI,
No, and I'm
right?
sure it
So
will. I mean, it will. It will. If they build the infrastructure, I'm sure that will benefit all of those companies equally. I mean, we saw Mark Zuckerberg had a very similar essay actually recently, and again, like, it was a very similar push for infrastructure and energy systems to be put in place.
we're very lucky here, Frank, because we're after receiving a considerable number of billions. I think it was 13, was it, from Apple in a tax case? And I don't know how much a nuclear power station or two costs, but a nuclear power station or two wouldn't be a bad use of those monies, because we're going to need them. In if we don't, I'm serious. If we don't
Would you?
build,
I know. Yeah. Would you take one in Tremor?
would I take a nuclear power station in Tremor? No, I wouldn't. Right, but if it was in, well, Ballyboden is my hate. That's in Dublin, though. Right around here, I mean, I can think of a couple of places that I'd put it. If it was a very small nuclear power station, but no, seriously, it's important, right? And the Chinese aren't going to stop, right? The Chinese aren't going to be hanging around for a couple of snails to be moved before they build their nuclear power station, right? They're just going to build the nuclear power station and the chip factory, and they're going to go for it. And there's no point. You will be very concerned when the Chinese achieve AGI first and you don't, because that's game over, right? There is nothing you can do to recover from that. And so the Americans realize it, the Chinese realize it, and the only people that don't realize it are the Europeans because they're too worried about trying to save it. And this is a technology which will save the environment at the end of the day anyway, because it will come up with ways of solving the issues that we have.
But I mean, so that was that specific thing was in Sam Altman's essay that AI will fix all our climate issues. I mean,
Yep.
what, we have no idea that that's true. I mean, I would love to believe it's true, and I think it's it is a possibility, but I would not be handing over all kinds of. I would not just be handing over everything we can to these companies on the basis that, like, oh yeah, we'll definitely get this to work sometime soon.
Power's gone to your head, Frank. The power. You've had a good week, and you think you're on top of everything, right? So far this week, well, in the last 2 weeks, let's say, Llama 3.2 was released by Meta in the entire world, but not in Europe. Apple AI was released in the entire world, but not in Europe. And OpenAI
Yeah.
Advanced Voice Mode was released in the entire world, but not in Europe. That one in particular is specifically illegal because it mimics a human emotion, which has been outlawed under EU law. And so what's happening is China and America and the rest of the world is I mean, this is serious. Like they're moving ahead with AI, and that technology is happening. And in Europe, we're not. We're being left behind, and that's going to have a huge impact, way greater, right? Because the impact of this is guaranteed to impact our children, and it's going to impact us too very shortly. We need to be, very careful about what we're regulating here.
I think these two things are linked in a way, because I genuinely believe that you have to do. I believe that regulation is the right path, as you know. Do I think that the EU have it all right and all figured out? No, I don't. I think we've work to do, but I think we have to do the right thing, even if it costs us. And I think that's one of the things that's wrong with society these days, is that we're not willing to take any pain in order to do the right thing. I'm interested that you said we don't get voice chat because it mimics a human emotion. So I didn't know that.
Yep.
Where is that EU regulation? Where does that sit? Because obviously it's not the AI Act, right? Or is it?
I think it's in the AI Act, and I don't have it to hand here, but I think that there is a law in the AI Act that says that you can't mimicking human emotions.
Because what I found interesting was, like, Meta 3.2 not rolling out here. To me, the question is why? Why is it not rolling out here? Nobody, I haven't seen anybody answer that yet.
Meta's own statement was that there wasn't sufficient regulatory certainty. So it was their way of saying we don't know, we're going to be sued.
Or their way of saying we don't like the way the EU regulations are going, and so we're not going to have our legal team look into this. We're just going to not roll it out to put pressure on the EU to change their regulations and allow us to do anything we like. That would be my fear. I mean, Apple, for example, I mean, most of the Apple issues are nothing to do with, the AI Act or anything like that, as far as I know. And a lot of it comes down to the fact that Apple, like the only concrete things that I've seen that the EU have said about Apple is this whole walled garden thing, where Apple force you to use their payment system and force you to use, and I mean, that's the only concrete thing that I've seen that the EU actually outlaws from Apple. So we're not getting a lot of these things, and I wonder how much of it is the companies just trying to put pressure on us and trying to get people like you and me to go, hey, we want these tools, EU, sort it out.
Well, maybe, but that's three things. Like, so one will be unfortunate, two will be a big accident, but three is just careless, Frank. Surely, and it does point to the fact, and it's three from three different companies. And so again, if it was just Elon Musk, you go, he's a bit mad. If it was just Mark Zuckerberg, you say he's a bit mad. If it was just OpenAI, you'd say he's just a bit mad. But it's not, it's three, which leads me to believe that something is wrong with the regulation and needs to be fixed quickly.
Or that the companies are, are just watching what's happening and thinking, yeah, let's create a critical mass here. Let's not bow to the EU regulations, even though they make a lot more sense for the consumer.
I disagree, Frank, but let's move on, right? You were playing this week with a new product from Google.
Yeah, Notebook LM. So
yeah,
I think this came up on my radar last week and we didn't get a chance to talk about it. But one of the reasons we didn't get a chance to talk about it was I wasn't excited about it. But what happened in the meantime was, some friends of mine who are very knowledgeable and very knowledgeable about AI. So Dan Nessel is one of them. Alistair McDermott is another one. They were raving about Notebook LM, and I thought, okay, I've got to have a look. I'm still not sure. It's cool. I will say it's cool. It's got a really good interface.
How it works.
What it is, if it's a bit like a custom GPT on steroids. So it is an interface, an AI interface where you can dump a whole load of documents and then have a chat with the AI about those documents. And it'll suggest some questions that you might want to ask, which is interesting because it does, it kind of gives you some inspiration even in the questions about, what this is all about or what the themes are. And one of the things that has really captured people's imaginations about Notebook LM is that when you put in all the documents, you get the option to create a AI conversation about the materials. So basically what it's like is if you're basically giving all this information to two AI podcast hosts, and then they have a short podcast about all this stuff. So I tried it out. For I created a notebook of the transcripts of all of our AI argument shows so far.
Brilliant. Why didn't you tell me this 29 minutes ago?
we could have just played it.
Yeah. Jesus. All right, let's hear it.
Let's see. I have no idea how to do this. I'm going to try. What happens if I do it through sharing screen, maybe? Share the audio.
And for those who are paying attention, they'll notice that actually the screen flickered there for a second and it's not really Justin and Frank anymore.
Oh, okay. I'm having a technological nightmare. And
how did you find it, Frank? So when oh, here we go.
So here we go. I'm gonna pick a random point in the timeline, rather than just playing it from the start. So let's just go here and let's just play it from here and see the kind of thing that I'm talking about.
Okay, well, I've got a question for you when we listen. Okay, go for it.
And the thing is, this isn't just some abstract philosophical debate.
Right.
It's happening right now in the real world. Remember that whole Google AI thing a while back?
Refresh my memory.
So Google released this AI chatbot, and well, it didn't go exactly as planned. Yeah, it started generating some pretty biased content, like really offensive stuff, actually. They had to shut it down pretty quickly.
Oh, right, that whole thing.
Yeah, it was a mess. And Frank actually speculated that part of the problem was that Google was so focused on competing with OpenAI, being first to market, that they kind of rushed the development process, didn't do enough testing, didn't iron out.
So
pretty cool.
It's pretty mad. The voices are really good. I was playing one earlier. I was playing one that Alistair McDermott had created. And Marcy was in the room with me. And when I told her what it was, she was like, "Oh, that was AI." So they're pretty convincing. But I still don't really get it. and I think it's a personal thing, because I was chatting about it in the Rise community, and some other people were saying that they like to ingest information this way, whereas for me
Yes.
personally, I'm like, I either want to just read the material, or I might want a summary, ideally a summary that was human, at least had some human oversight, because I don't entirely trust AI summaries. Or I want to hear what two podcast hosts that I trust here think about material. But as like, a lot of people are using this now as a public facing thing, and that I don't really get, because like, I don't really want to consume content that is two AI voices essentially just like giving some kind of a summary.
Did they say who
What's
was
your
right?
in the
Did they
AI
say-
argument?
Yeah. Did they say, yeah, Frank said this, and then Justin quite reasonably pointed out. And then Frank wouldn't let it go. He was quite happy that he was a Luddite and said that he was going off to cook his dinner on a fire.
Yeah. I'll tell you, I must figure out if there's a way to share a notebook with you, because one of the great things about this is it is very complimentary. So I gave it all of the transcripts, and the summaries that I came back with about what the AI argument was. We sound like geniuses, Justin. We sound like we have the best show in the world according to Notebook LM.
Do you think there's a problem, right? There's an issue there. Do you think there's a problem? Because they are sycophantic. All of the AI, all of the large language models, like, will tell you, oh, that's great. You're so correct, Frank. You're gorgeous. And that's, for us, that's fine, right? It gives me a chuckle, and I'm sure it gives you a chuckle, where it's like, yeah, whatever. But if you're 10 now, right, and in 10 years now, you grow up only in a world where you have all of these AIs. And remember, we had that idea last week where you had a social network where everything's just an AI. So you can post and you get loads of responses, and they all tell you you're great. People are going to be, people are going to have a different impression of what people think of them than what reality is, which might not be the best thing in the world.
Yeah. But I did a test recently, just out of curiosity. I was getting AI to assess a sales page we had done for me, to look for gaps and problems or whatever. And again, it was, as you say, it was so positive that I was like, I don't know if I trust this. So what I did then was I gave it the exact same prompt, and I explained, like, look, this is a sales page for this audience. This is the desired outcome, blah, blah, blah. And then I pasted in the entirely wrong sales page just to see what would happen. And it, in fairness, it came back and it was like, yeah, there's a misalignment here. You're going to need to work on this. You're going to need to actually work on the content so that it's more, and I was like, okay, phew, that's good. That's good. At least it does, at least it does acknowledge, no, sorry, buddy, this is way off. But
Brilliant.
I think you have to go way off for it to do that.
Very good. Frank, we have two interesting stories to finish up on. One is about our stuff being cooked, and the other is about the Russian AI ticket vending machine. Where would you like to go?
Well, let's start with the stuff being cooked, because you shared this with me and I was like, I have no idea what's going on. I don't know what this means.
Well, it was so interesting. So to explain, this was a story to just maybe highlight the generational difference and how language has changed as a result of AI. So this particular person that I read about was in a meeting, and there was a number of people at the meeting, ranging in ages from late teens to middle-aged grumpy men like ourselves. And in the meeting, somebody mentioned that our stuff is cooked, to which the middle-aged grumpy old men such as you and me got very afraid and nervous, thinking, oh my God, this is terrible. Whereas all the young people took the AI meaning of the word, which is when you're cooking something, it means you're brewing something great. And then when it's cooked, it's done, it's ready, it's going to be amazeballs, and you're ready to release. And just the difference in it is almost like Hiberno English, where the same words mean exactly the opposite thing to two different audiences, which was hilarious. And I thought that was fantastic.
If someone said that in a meeting and I'd been there, I think I would have just done my kind of like, in that kind of like, this could be taken either way. I could be saying, oh yeah, this is great. Or I could be saying, oh dear, we're going to need to deal with this. I saw somebody else when you showed it to me. I saw that somebody else said that if they'd been in that meeting, they would have said, "Yes, but will it scale?"
Brilliant. Okay, and then Frank, you saw the Russian AI ticket vending machine. I mean, the Russians, again, they've got all of the things. They've got their Llama 3.2, their Apple AI, and their OpenAI advanced voice modes. Plus now a ticket vending machine in train stations that uses AI to render video in real time and to dispatch videos. The Russians have it. It's all sewn up.
Except that it's fake news.
Really? The Russians didn't have? No.
This was a video on a loop in a some kind of exhibition where they were like, this is what the future might look like.
It wasn't real time. It said clearly it's real time generated by AI. You're telling me they lied?
You were lied to on Twitter, Justin. You were lied to. Who would have thought? The one place, X, the one place that we thought we could trust.
X, the truth platform. I'm stunned. I'm disappointed.
Great idea, though. Like, it might not be real. The video that we saw might not be real, but I bet we're going to see one any day now.
Powered by nuclear power stations and snail-killing chip factories, Frank.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Hopefully not a nuclear station in Cork or Tremor. Let's wait and see how it pans out before we build ours.
Brilliant. Frank, on that bombshell, we must close. Great conversation as ever, and I look forward to arguing with you next week.
Chat to you then. Cheers, Justin.
Take it easy.